Abhishek Shankaria. He won a medallion in prototype modeling. Abhishek is working in Toyota Kirloskar in Bangalore. Well done, Abhishek. Next, Neha Ulhas Chande, the only lady to represent with a medallion. Neha is from Enrich Saloon, Mumbai. She had previously won a gold in the Oceania competition before the Sao Paulo one. Congratulations, Neha. Parshuram. Parshuram has won in bricklaying. He's from Kushal Kridai, Pune. Next is Shriram Govindswamy in graphic designing. He's from NIT Trichy. Surajit Kumar Rana, jewelry making. He's from Bishnupur in West Bengal. Surajit, it can be said, he's the ideal role model because he could not complete his school. He's just fourth pass, but then he has reached this height despite his... Sunil Kumar Sharma from Plastic Dye Engineering, Bhilwara, Rajasthan. Sachin Bhojling Narale in welding. He also won the Best of Nation award. That is giving him this credit as he's got the highest score amongst all the participants from India. Pradeep Ved, hairdressing. He's from Udaipur. That's it. Maybe you can have one group photograph if you can. Thank you very much.
May I now request Dr. Kamal Hassan, who was there in the inaugural session as well, to kindly say a few words.
Honorable Minister, comrades, friends, I have already spoken in the morning, but I'd like to reiterate and say with pride what first steps we have taken in the presence of the Minister. in the Media and Entertainment Skill Set Development Council, we have come up with this idea. It's a worker-led movement where all the workers of the industry are going to facilitate, cooperate, and get certified for basic skills. I thought it would be best to use the muscle of the union and the involvement of the unions in this, and they have kindly agreed, and I think that's the first step to making this a success. It's a worker-led initiative towards skill development, and first few thousand certificates are going to be easy because they're already skilled and we are only ratifying them. And there's no question of errors here, but we'll have to be careful in future when we bring in new talents into the industry. And this we plan to do in November, a workshop of 3 days where we intend to shut down the industry for 3 days so that no one has an excuse of work. This is very important because it's for the future of our country and our industry, selfishly speaking. And I'm glad to be part of that initiative. All India Federation of Film Employees Confederation is with us, which means all the unions are with us. Both the state and the central government, I'm sure, are going to be with us and bless us in this initiative. I'm happy to once again say with pride that it is a first step, but I think if we do it successfully, it will be talked about and emulated. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ma'am, it has been the endeavor of FICCI to support, supplement the cause of skill development. This is the 8th edition of Global Skill Summit, and every year it has been growing from strength to strength. We incubated, supported half a dozen sector skills councils. Sector skills councils are the ones represented by particular sector. Industry captains come together, decide on the standards and doing that, ma'am. In continuation of our efforts, our endeavor to support skill development, what we thought in FICCI should do is that bring a group of CEOs who are passionate, committed about skill development together. And we called it CEOs for Skills as a group, so that the skill development, unless it becomes the agenda of the CEO and the entire company, that corporate would not attach priority. So we established this CEO for Skills forum, ma'am, within FICCI. And it will be our privilege. We'll be grateful if you could kindly launch it formally by clicking the mouse. Can somebody bring that, please? And this we would, to begin with, about 15 CEOs of emerging employment intensive sectors will be part of it. Slowly we'll expand. Please bring that. Take it and click it, ma'am. Yeah. Just click. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, ma'am. So with this initiative, we are very, very hopeful of bringing the top management of FICCI corporate members to own and drive this entire skills initiative. May I now request ma'am to kindly address the gathering.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mrs. Suri, what can I say? Most admired star, Kamala Hassan, Naina Lal Kidwai, and the distinguished panel who are on the dais. The 8 brilliant stars who have gone abroad to establish that India has skills inherently in our youngsters. I once again want to wish them, because that's the kind of talent which, coming from youth from varied backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, who could go and compete in an international arena, just proves the point that we don't give our youngsters enough opportunities. If only that's given, I'm sure each one would be a bright star. Media and the invited guests, I'm very delighted to be here, but at the same time, each time I participate in a program of this nature, I get humbled. I feel very humbled because you see young, talented youngsters from India who are revving to reach their targets, want to prove themselves. And many of them do against terrible odds. And it is that kind of motivation, that kind of a drive, the self-motivation with which youngsters today want to prove a point, that we who are, in places of some kind of decision-making, who will have to catch up with their aspirations, who will really have to meet their demand, and who have no time to wait. They don't have a time to wait, and we don't have a time to lose. Because if data is right, only 5% of all our youngsters are given some kind of a training before they even seek employment. And this, when we proudly tell the whole world that 2/3 of our population is under 35. And if 2/3 of our population is under 35 years of age, and only 5% of them which go into jobs are trained with skills, the question which begs to be answered is, what are we really doing with our youngsters? They are going into universities, they are getting themselves qualified, and they're coming out. Many of the employers keep telling us that they spend at least the first 6 months in getting them ready to take on the job in its true sense. So many of the youngsters who are really ready to be taking up jobs have got to be given that extra skill set imparting. And that is the most important responsibility of those in government, those in decision making. Whilst, of course, all of you all hear about the economic outlook and, about how this country is going to be growing fastest as an economy. We are going to beat China. We are going to be probably growing at the rate of 7.5%. And it's going to be one of the shining stars and so on. Relevant to this meet here is the point that World Economic Forum has brought out a human capital index ranking, and it speaks of how countries utilize their human capital. And in that, of a total of 124 countries, India is ranked at 100. Not at all something which we can feel proud about. And of course, the data about how many people are waiting to get skill and so on matches up to that ranking, that we are really not anywhere near what we should be doing. I'm glad to say, we don't have the results yet, but at least I'm glad to say that after this government was formed, the need for boosting up on providing skills for our youth was completely understood, and this government has created a ministry exclusively for skill development and entrepreneurship, and that will be the nodal ministry which will probably be linking up with 35 sectoral areas and bringing all the forces together to make sure that training is important to youth. It's not a program, it's not a scheme, but it's a movement. And therefore, it is very clearly to be understood that the government itself is only pushing forward from its side, but the cooperation from everybody. And I'm glad to say here you have somebody whose skills personified himself, who's acquired his skills and excelled in his own field. Kamala Hassan has set the pace, And I'm very glad in an industry which requires a lot of technical qualification in the sense technical skills, in an industry where the technical skills are diverse that you need to produce a wonderful, entertaining film. You need people with all those different skills, and it is not at all easy. And of course, me coming from the South, I'm not a film buff, but I can tell you with a bit of a risk, the technical quality of the South Indian films is far superior to many other things which I've seen in the North. And for that, the kind of work, intense work, and taking of risks with the South Indian film industry has done over the decades speak for itself, but that requires a lot of grilling with people and working together with them. And it is that kind of a thing which is required for every industry, be it your manufacturing of core metals, be it looking at IT-related sectors. Everywhere it is that the last minute finish and that acquiring of that value addition to the qualification that you may need, which makes you a different employee from another who just has a certificate to prove that he's qualified enough. So the need for that kind of additional skill is not just in the film industry, it is apparent in the film industry, but it is obvious that similar kind of skills are required in every sector where you really don't get to talking about it. I mean, like most of these industries today, which you might see in the neighborhood of Delhi, do find it difficult to get the right kind of people. And the moment they get somebody, they spend quite a few months training them. And it is that bridging of gap which all of us need to pay our attention to. When I said the Ministry for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship is dealing with 35 different sectoral activities, it is actually 31 sector-related skills councils which are there. And it is those skill councils with whom my colleague Rajiv Pratap Rudi is spending time to make sure that those skill councils are on board with the government so that the training that is being imparted will mean something for those who need it. And we understand from the government, in the government, we understand nearly 109 million skilled workforce is what is being demanded by the industry. Industry will require that kind of a number by the year 2020. And if that is what has got to be readied, it's a big challenge. In the next decade, that is, we need to have 24 identified sectors and nearly 460 million people who require either enhancing their existing skills or new skills to be provided. Of course, the National Employment Service, which is a network of employment exchanges, the National Career Service, all of them are going to be roped in. And when the government does it, it has its own strengths, but it also has its own challenges. Speaking from the government, I'm definitely duty-bound to tell you that Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is a very important scheme in this process that shall be doing a lot of work. Around 10 lakh youth will also be assessed and certified for skills they already possess through recognition of prior learning, RPL scheme. And for around 34 lakh youth seeking to attend skill development programs over the next 5 years, loans ranging from 5,000 rupees to 1.5 lakh rupees will be provided under the skill loan scheme. This has now been launched, and I'm sure many of these youth who want to have this facility can take the loan and help them to get intensively trained. The priority, of course, is labor-intensive sectors. It is there that we want to immediately launch the scheme so that it benefits the industry. The vision of the Prime Minister is to make India the skill capital of the world, for which the world is... the reason why this focus is given also from a global point of view is the world is expected to face a shortage of 57 million workers by 2020. 57 million workers shortage all over the world. And India has 55 million potential workers between the ages 15 years to 35 years, and they all live in the rural India. And this is based on 2011 census. Obviously, by the time the next census comes, you will have far more, probably increased number of youth who will be demanding the services. There are times, of course, when we talk the Prime Minister is going to Silicon Valley, we always think as to why, when many of our youngsters from here have gone to Silicon Valley, and it is there they are proving their innovative skills, they are doing a lot of startups, which are really showing off as very, talented, and as these boys and girls are, one girl there. Though the environment which is available there makes them prove themselves. Is it possible for us to provide that kind of an environment here for our youth? Why is it that the same set of youth with the same set of background are unable to come out of the shackles if it is in India? And why is it that they would perform anywhere else? So not just the loan that I talked about, the government is trying to do a lot more in order to create an ecosystem, the ecosystem that I've been talking, probably available in Silicon Valley but not here, in order to create that ecosystem for young startup businesses, particularly those in the MSME sectors. The fund of funds has been created of 10,000 crore rupees, and this would be attracting also private capital so that it can be enhanced, and it will provide equity capital, soft loans, and risk capital for those who want to start up fresh enterprises. The Mudra Bank is another example. I don't want to go into details of it. That's going to reach out to the small, nano, micro units which want to do their own. The creation of world-class modern infrastructure is something which is important for enabling innovations and also for better skill provision. So the government is going to be spending a lot of public funds for it, not waiting just for looking at public and private partnership, but this is going to be completely public funds. Under the Make in India scheme, we've given emphasis for 25 sectoral areas in which that scheme would help. Gems and jewelry is one of them. Leather, textiles is another. There are these are all labor-intensive activities. So there's quite a lot that we can do to improve our position from that HCI index, which has come out by the World Economic Forum. We don't want to be at 100 in a total of 124 countries. We should really improve. We owe it to our youngsters, especially the talented ones. They are not urban educated. There are many of them coming from rural areas. We owe it to all our youngsters to provide them with the opportunity to acquire skills and prove for themselves as to what they can offer this country. I thank the FICCI for giving me this opportunity. There's just a lot, but it's not just going to be government. It's going to be all of us. And I'm grateful to Kamala Hassan for having started this initiative from the point of view of film industry, but every industry requires such initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, Dr. Suri, the President, and Dr. Kamala Hassan. Now we will continue with the panel discussion. Ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Round of applause to the Honorable Minister. So now next 30 minutes or so we will spend on panel discussion. As you have seen, very, very high-powered panel, although we have about 30-35 minutes. I'm sure will be very, very useful. The whole objective of pitching this session as Make in India session and Skill India is that this need not be explained, When we talk about Make in India, Honorable Minister mentioned number of sectors are there. Within that, there are employment-intensive sectors. There are strategic perspective-related sectors like defense manufacturing, employment-intensive like you have the textiles and several other sectors. And we have very good panel here, Mr. Kishore Jayaraman, the President, India and South Asia of Rolls-Royce. Very, very big name and very deep interest in strategic manufacturing per se. And Mr. Mestu, the CEO of IKEA here. As you know, you have been reading in newspapers the grand plans that IKEA has for India, starting with Hyderabad, one of the largest stores in India they would be opening, and going forward they'll be expanding to other states as well. Mr. Toshi is here from Panasonic Welding India. It's established a state-of-the-art unit near Delhi. and expansion. You know, Panasonic is a sort of household name in India. And these three gentlemen, the CEOs of their operations in India, would be talking about some of their areas of interest, the sectors in which they have deep interest, what are the skill challenges, what should be the strategy, how do we address that. And to set the context and broad picture with respect to the broad strategy challenges, we have Mrs. Nainalal Kidwai, the past president of the FICCI, and Group General Manager Country Head of HSBC. And of course, she doesn't need introduction. You know all of her. Maybe, ma'am, we could start off with you. If you could set the context and identify the issues. After that, each of the panelists would respond for about 5 minutes quickly. Then we'll open up for discussions. Thank you.
So thank you, RCM. You are inevitably a slave driver when it comes to everything to do with skills. I want to start by really congratulating those of you who have been engaged in bringing the skills agenda to this point. The fact that we have the sector skills councils and that they have reached where they have, that journey is never easy. And the early periods as we develop this are really quite important. And I had a chance to really look at this really from the perspective of the Swachh Bharat mission, because as some of you may know, we have launched an India Sanitation Coalition, which is supported by FICCI. And the purpose of the India Sanitation Coalition is to bring all the players in sanitation onto one platform. Those players are inevitably not-for-profit, but we also have the big funding and doning agencies, World Bank, etc. We have corporates who are interested in this space. And ultimately, we have business, because you need the supply chain that will actually be supplying to do what is one of the biggest exercises any country ever has undertaken, which is really the toilets that are being built right now. And our concern was that the toilets that get built there are two issues. One, are they going to be used as toilets? There are enough stories out there that show us they often get used for storage or for anything other than toilets, even after they're built. And the second and maybe more significant one is that the toilets get built to a standard. And I raise this because the good news is that knowing that we already have training institutes and a construction vertical in place, the implementation of a sanitation module into a construction vertical that already has been established, or indeed an exercise which has been identified, which is to have a certificate given, which is a joint plumbing and mason certificate, so that you have one person who knows how to build the toilet to the right standard. If we had had to start from scratch today, it would have just taken us that much longer. So a lot of this is already work that has been implemented, and this idea of the joint certification, I'm very happy to hear, has already been taken forward and is to be implemented shortly. So what we now have is the ability and flexibility to move skilling into the areas we need. So you have a major national program with a lot of money being spent, and the skills to be developed around that, very, very critical to match that program. Otherwise, that program doesn't move forward in the right way. So I do think that this whole area will be very, very important for us. A second area where we have a sector skills council is textiles. And I just got back from Hong Kong last night, and I was talking with the chairman of Li & Fung. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with who Li & Fung is, they are the biggest exporters of apparel and textiles from China. And as many of you know, China is the biggest textile, has been traditionally the biggest textile and apparel exporter in the world. But that is shrinking. And they, in fact, Li & Fung have do over $1 billion of business here, and they want to do a lot more. And for groups like that to know the employment potential was so good, and the women wanted to continue in their jobs, that a social change, and you can imagine the significance of a social change, where women traditionally move into the men's house, where you now have the guys moving into the village where the woman lives. And that is the empowerment that we can provide in terms of jobs, in terms of continuing in the role. And indeed, it took some community activity and not-for-profits working there to help with these kind of social changes. So I think the work we do as industry is, of course, to provide the employment and the specs, but to also recognize there's a soft side to some of this change that needs to happen, and we have to be able to handhold people through this in a way which also encourages the not-for-profit community and civil society to work together with us as we set out to achieve this, particularly in the areas that I have just described. And I will end by saying that, we've had huge success in India in the BFSI space, that is the banking financial sector space. India is a huge employer of back office in these spaces. I can only tell you that groups like ours at HSBC, we added 1,500 people last year. We'll add another similar number this year. And this at a time when the world looks like it's in recession. India is a big hub for this activity. And if we can continue to train young people, they come from tier 2, tier 3 towns, sometimes in 2-hour cities, sometimes working in these tier 2, tier 3 towns, where in fact many of us have set up operations. There is again huge scope for training therein. So the services side, whether in the banking financial services sector or now in areas like certification and assistance, in areas like renewable energy and the certification of buildings that are being built to a certain standard, are all going to become very important as well. So on that note, let me hand it back to RCM. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Mr. Jayaraman, can we have your remarks, please?
Thank you, RCM. Distinguished colleagues here on the dais with me, friends, ladies, gentlemen. You know, Rolls-Royce has been in this country for well over 80 years. And we have gone through the phases of probably coming here and selling and manufacturing in the UK, forming partnerships, technology transfers. And now we are at the stage where we need to be not only making in India, we need to be scaling India in order to make in India. And I think to that effect, what I wanted to share with you was a few things that Rolls-Royce has been doing globally and what we intend to do in India as we go forward. As is with any multinational company, we have come to India, we have leveraged the fantastic engineering talent. We have trained them to deliver to aerospace standards, to do designs, to do subsystems for us. But as we went on this journey from 2005, we realized that we can go further. We can create patents. We can do research and development further with our own people here. So we have embarked on a new journey where last month we announced we'll hire 500 people in Bangalore that will work for Rolls-Royce, developing Rolls-Royce products and services for the globe. Now, this is leveraging the engineering talent. But then we looked at manufacturing. Everybody said aerospace components are too complicated. It's very difficult to make it in India or any other place, Asia. So we went from UK to Singapore. That was globalization. But then, when we started our joint venture with HAL in 2010, we built a factory here within 13 months. It's never been done before. We did that at a cost much lower than what we could have built anywhere else. We had technicians training. They went to an apprenticeship program in the UK. All of them came out as stars, just like we saw the 8 stars here today. They were all stars. One created a record in plasma coating. We have engineers, we have diplomas, we have PhDs that work in the factories. And they deliver to us something that we have not seen before. So that factory was another eye-opener for us. As we move through this journey, and as we hire engineering, as we create manufacturing, as we create supply chain, it becomes extremely important how do we partake in the local ecosystem in order to build aerospace as an industry. And there again, if you look at the UK model for us, we had 3 things going for us. Number 1, we have an apprenticeship program. Every year, we take in about 100 students. It's a highly competitive program built over a period of 50, 60 years. Students come out of high school. They join the program, they work, they learn the skills, but they're also going through an engineering degree while they do this, or some other technical degree that they want to achieve as they go through this program. At the end of the program, they're absorbed into Rolls-Royce. Now, can any single company do this, or can we scale that to the needs of India, create such a program wherein we can pay students after high school to come learn skills, and their skills are absorbed by companies that are participants of this particular group? The second thing we do, which is recognized by the UK government, and the UK government is participating with us in this program, is 2-year program. We rotate people through different divisions. They learn They also have theory classes with universities, a partnership between the government, universities, and the private company. It creates students to the needs of the industry. Can we do something similar here? These are the things that Rolls-Royce looks at as we look at our next journey from the past 80 years to selling, technology transfers, manufacturing, supply chain, to skilling, designing, creating patents, and being a fabric of this country. So we think we can do a lot in this country with these initiatives that have come in. Make in India, GDP growth, skilling by us, manufacturing, supply chain, so much to do. It's a great journey that we have ahead of us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. Mehta, can we have your remarks, please?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you. I believe that retail is not yet recognized as a category. Not enough today. Not in the way we create employment, direct and indirect, in the way the planning rules, but also in the way of the contribution to the economy. So retail has to develop quite a lot in India and has to be recognized as a category. Then within retail, we are a very weird retailing company because we are a production-oriented retail company and we are fully integrated. So in that sense, our jobs and the needs for skill are based in 4 pillars. One is big scale sourcing, big factories, big production. Then the second is a small scale sourcing, where we, in parallel to the big channel, we also take contact with mostly women here in India, the rural India, through a program that we call Next Generation, and we skill them, and then we train them, and then we get products to be sold worldwide, and it's working extremely well, and we are going to scale this up. The third is the jobs in the retail stores. Every store is very big. We're talking about 4 lakhs square feet, 500 crores per store. And then in the fourth bubble is all the jobs that are around the services. So in that sense, we are a production-oriented retail company and are present in all these lines. Then when it comes to skilling, we have 4 focus areas now here worldwide and even more relevant in India. The first one for us is focused on women and youth. And women for us is part of the DNA of the company. We are highly committed with the gender equality, 50-50. Other than that, it's a chicken attitude, let me say in this way. And it's not because it's good for the society, it's also good for the business. And we have to do a massive job in the society, and in particular in India, and we have to really focus much more in women and youth. Then the second is focused not only in the technical job, which is quite important, it's also very relevant, the soft skills and the attitude and the values. The third dimension, or third focus area, is what we call dignity of labor. You know, IT and engineer is very good, but there is a big job to do when it comes to recognize how important are many other technical jobs. So it's not only about title in IT and engineer, it's also about many technical jobs where the economy is based on. And finally, the focus area in quality, that is extremely relevant for us. So in that sense, I want just to finish with the 3 drivers that we are going to work now that we are move on in our business in India, because we have been 28 years in India in the sourcing side, and we are going to expand the sourcing and all the retail activities across the country. The 3 drivers are, the first one is stability. And I think it's important to say this. So it's not about skilling. It's about a stable, skilled co-worker. And because if not, a skill is seen as a cost and not as an investment. And in order to do that, I do believe that the most strategic function we have in any company, or at least in IKEA, is recruitment. Everything starts with recruitment. If we do a bad recruitment, what's the point to keep investing in skilling? So recruitment is connected both with the values, but also the stability is secure, what we call internally the I way, to be committed to provide good working conditions, being environmental friendly, having fair wage, and all these things. It has to be secure from the beginning. It cannot be that we try to reduce costs and later on we will do something else. So we are highly committed to secure long-term stability by recruitment, but also by right working conditions. The second driver for us, IKEA Foundation, which is a philanthropic arm and is 15 years in India now, and is very active, is working now to develop a program in private partnership with NSDC, which is here today, but also with the state governments, but also with the private companies, in order to be fully focused in skill building for women and youth. And this is something that we truly believe, that how can we connect much more on a sustainable basis, both, because it's not about getting education, it's about companies being proactive in advance about what type of education is needed, so we take them at the, so there is no, we need to build a bridge. If we don't build a bridge, then it doesn't make sense, and we are all responsible. And the third driver is the long term. You know what? We are now expanding the sourcing activities. We have to develop a lot of new materials, a lot of new products made of environmental raw materials, and all these things require a massive effort in time. So we all need to have a long-term perspective. That is not a short-term program, okay, we have a skill X number of people and they get a job. It's much more about a long-term career. So let's start with the fundamental. Let's work with the backstage in securing a long-term career for many people, because it's a shame that they leave the company because with all the investment we have done. So these are the three drivers that we are going to be very active now across our entire supply chain. So stability with good working condition and good recruitment is public partnership within the government and institution and the private companies, and its long-term view. And focus in women. Thank you very much.
We have your remarks, Mr. Takashari.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for giving me this great opportunity. I'm from Panasonic India. Let me introduce about the Panasonic operation in India, and also the contribution to the Make in India initiative. Panasonic, we started business to India. First of all, as you know, Panasonic India is a regional company of Panasonic Corporation, which is based in Japan. We started business in India since 1970s. However, there are a lot of issues since then. So finally, we established Panasonic India Private Limited in 2008 and put all management resource in that company. And then below that, we have a lot of divisions. As you know, Panasonic is famous for consumer electronics, audio visuals, appliances, and recently we launched mobile phones. However, we have more divisions, like automotive divisions, which supplies car audio and other things to OEMs. Also device divisions, which makes components and then sell to other manufacturing companies. And equipment business, which is then welding business is one of them. Panasonic is making welding machines and welding robots also. And there's a excuse me. There are about 13,000 people, employees in India at this moment. And Panasonic India is aiming about $4.8 billion in 2018. 2018 is our 100th anniversary. So we are now focusing on the expanding toward that. And also, we invested a lot. In the last 5 years, our total investment in India, only in India, is about $1 billion US. So we try to contribute and also try to expand our business in India. Let me talk about contribution to the Make in India initiative. There are 2 points of view for us. One is establish manufacturing setup in India. This is kind of a direct contribution to Make in India. We try to make products in India, not exporting from other countries. We try to make our products in India as much as possible. That is one. Well, recently we opened Panasonic Technopark in Jajjar in Haryana. And in that Technopark, at this moment, we have 3 factories, air conditioning factory, washing machine factory, and welding machine factories. And second point is, point of a contribution to Make in India is training or skill development. We recently set up 3 vocational institute in NCR areas, associate with the LaborNet. There is career courses. We have career courses like fast food retail, showroom retail, BPO, data entry, electrical, electronics, mobile repairing, and such, and so on. And by March 2016, we aim to train about 2,800 students, and to place at least 70% of the students enrolled in career courses. That's one point. And then another thing is we recently conduct seminar and workshop to promote the high precision arc welding technology in India. Welding is very specific areas. However, it is critical element to improve manufacturing sectors, because welding is related to all, let's say, metal joining industries, such as bridges, making bridges or buildings, making plants, power plants or food process plants, or making automobiles, shapes, and those things. So the welding is a fundamental technology in manufacturing sector. Personally, I moved to India 4 years ago. And then since then, what I noticed as a foreigner or as a person who have experience in other countries, such as US, Japan, of course, and UK, Thailand, the most, let's say, important, or the most thing that need to be improved is, I think, the people need to understand what is good thing. So that realization is very important, but that is missing. From welding's point of view, for example, people say, "Oh, this is good welding." However, at the international level, it's unfortunately still it's very low. But that's because they don't know what is international level. So we try to promote the latest technology of welding, as long as the skills. From management point of view or manufacturing sector's point of view, the objective of skill development is to get higher output, improving qualities or improving productivities. So that is the objective. Training is to get that objectives. And there is two elements to maximize the output. One is, of course, skilled. If you have a higher skill, so you can get better quality or better productivity, whatever. But also, there is another element, which is tools. Okay? The tool support skill. For example, welding. Welding machine, that is a tool for welding application. So for both, we need to understand what is a good thing. So that's what we are trying to do. And so this is, then we can discuss about the details of skill development, how to do it. But this is what I want to say. That we need to understand what is a good thing, what is an international level. That is, otherwise we cannot have a better, let's say, or the benchmark. And this is a linkage of a skill development program and also manufacturing sectors. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Since we are running short of time, instead of me asking questions next 5 to 10 minutes, if you could spend any pertinent question, anything related to any of these three areas that are mentioned here, all three diverse sectors. Anybody wants to ask any question? No.
Hello, I'm Engineer A.K. Shrivastava from Amity University. My question goes to Mr. Kishore Jayaraman. I understand that Rolls-Royce has, a lot of experience working with the university to produce the right kind of stuff, right type of talent, identify those talent and then groom them to make them of international quality and produce them. And you said that you are open to that type of, experiment here in India also. Do you looking for a business partnership, or do you looking for something like a CSR activity or something which need to be scaled up across India,
Well, sometimes it's good not to do something, so we need CSR out of this for a second. Thank you. And but I would say that, look, when I look at skills needs of this country, 1 million graduates coming out, how do these people become employable? And how do these people, in a very selfish way, become employable within Rolls-Royce or within the aerospace industry? And if we look at it, I think there's tons of opportunities to do that. We cannot do it just by ourselves. Just like you mentioned, in the UK, it is done in partnership with the universities, it's done in partnership with the industry. So we will look to figure out how to get that going in India similarly, right? So the answer to that is, yes, we'll be doing it. The answer to that is, with whom, what, yet to come.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other question? Yeah, please.
I'm Ajit Kumar, founder KhushiGram. It's a social and green enterprise platform, and we are trying to work in the rural and semi-rural areas. So there is a electronics hub that is being planned in Bihar, which is not so developed state or developing state, you can say. So would any of you be interested? There is a place called Bihta, which is closer to Patna, which has an airport, and Gaya also, which is an international airport now. So would any of you be interested in doing something there? IIT Patna has been established in the new campus recently, and the PM inaugurated that last month.
Suppose it's interested in the sense, if it is in the area of operations, I'm sure many of them, for example, I am personally aware of very good quality of work being done by Panasonic in terms of supporting the skill development initiatives in and around their plant areas. Also, the points that he mentioned about, if once we identify what is the benchmarks for good quality welder means, I think irrespective of where you are located, the work, the inputs being provided by companies like them are easily adaptable all across. So the fact that they chose to come and be here is the knowledge that they have, the inputs that they have available for all of us. So any of you want to get in touch with them on specifics, for example, the takeaways for me for this kind of panel would be, like the question which you're asking about Amity University, and Mr. Jayaraman did mention about the model that they work in UK in partnership with the universities. Probably some of these universities, it could be IIT, it could be private universities, engineering colleges, diploma colleges, and those who are interested in getting into very high value kind of skills, and we could reach out to Rolls-Royce, and depending upon what they do, how they do, and they, as I said, they would be quite open to looking at sharing the best practices that they have. So is the case on welding here. So is the case in IKEA. IKEA, you know, the kind of best practices that they bring in entire supply chain. And entire supply chain, right from the way it is produced and it's finished, it's transported, it's sold. They are the kind of skill sets they bring in. So it is up to us to make use of the expertise that is available around us. And since we are running short of time, and instead of prolonging the discussion, since I don't see many hands going up, and thank you very much for your kind presence here. And we will
there's a question here. Just one last question. This side on your left-hand side, please. Yeah. This is a question for Naina ji, a little bit sensitive question. You know, the rural entrepreneur ends up, you know, as an NPA. So what kind of, you know, solution would we have to avoid them getting into an NPA situation?
Well, an NPA means it's a rural entrepreneur that borrows. In fact, if you look at many models working with microfinance companies, what you state is not the case at all. And the model typically is around self-help groups, the SHGs, largely women, standing guarantee for each other. And there are at least 3 such models which I have personally seen and been back year after year, which there are no NPAs. So I don't want to leave this room with people having the impression that rural entrepreneurs have NPAs. They don't, if they're properly conceived. And the conception of it, therefore, has to be the lending happening to the self-help group, which is now a proven model, through an established microfinance institution, not necessarily banks. And simultaneously, all these 3 ones that, in fact, we at HSBC support have schools which also train the women in basic financial skills. So these are quite illiterate women, but they learn basic financial skills on how to run a tailoring shop, how to be a vegetable vendor, so that they know how to manage their funding. And they are village entrepreneurs. Some of them now are actually employing up to 30, 40 women, and they actually stitch petticoats for the surrounding villages, for example. So they have become, you know, mini factories of their own, and all through just the effort of skilling along with lending. So I think if you can twin the two, there's definitely room for a lot of such success.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Since several hands have now gone up, but we have time constraint. My request to those who want to ask questions, they can, after the panel, they can meet the individual panelists and pose that query. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, other panelists. For next panel.
Just a quick announcement. We have the session, next session is starting just after that. So Rajesh Agarwal ji, the Joint Secretary, has already come. So requesting you, all of you, to please have your seats. Requesting ushers to please join the seats. And may I request all the delegates here to please get your seats. We already have Joint Secretary in the FICCI building, and he's expected to join us any minute of time. Can I request, we are going to have a session on very interesting CEO's panel discussion on Skills India Industry Invest. May I call upon Sri Sanjeev Duggalji, co-chair FICCI Skill Development Forum. He is also CN Director, Centum Learning. Our panelist, Mr. Shashir Jaipuria, CMD, Genie Filaments Limited. Other panelist, Mailikar Duran, member of the Board of Directors, PHCO Turkey. The panelist, Mr. Sandeep Ranjan Das, former MD and CEO, Reliance Jio Infocom. May I request all of you senior panelists to please join. Also requesting my colleagues to please escort all the delegates who are outside, because we are going to start. The session will be moderated by Sri Sanjeev Duggalji. He is a co-chair FICCI Skill Development Forum. He is also CEO and Director, Centum Learning Limited. The session is very interesting because while we talk about skills development and